Hi, welcome back to Learn Payload with Colin. Today we're jumping right back into our real estate marketplace that we're building with Payload CMS and of course NextJS. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of refactoring on a couple of the collections that we've created so far. Number one, the properties collection, and also the zip codes collection. So there's a feature within Payload CMS that auto-generates your types for you, as you may or may not be aware. And so every time you make a change to a collection, the type that is associated with that collection gets updated automatically, usually. And if it doesn't happen automatically, there's a command line script that you can run to do that also. So, and it's a really nice feature, but it doesn't grab everything. So, and what I mean by everything is, in a previous video, I created a virtual field called address, which sort of flattened out or reshaped the city, state, zip code, and street of the property, kind of put it all into a single object called address associated to the properties collection as a virtual field. And as a result, that new virtual field called address did not get generated as part of the type that gets auto-generated with the properties collection. And so what I did is I created another type called property with address, or an interface in this case, that extends the property interface. And so that gave me all of the types or the fields associated with the property collection, but also allowed me to add additional fields or types to that. And I called it property with address. Now, that worked out fine, but it's not really flexible. So if I ever had to make changes, I would have to constantly update that type. And again, not a too big of a deal, but there's a better way to do it in Payload. Payload offers you gives you the ability to change or describe the types that you want associated with a particular field. And it does that through using JSON schema, which is a standard that it's almost like a validation standard. You can say in JSON, you can describe the properties of an object, for instance, and what kind of types they are, strings, numbers, that kind of thing. And so as part of the field, Payload has this configuration option called TypeScript schema. And then all you have to do is just pass it a function that returns a valid piece of JSON schema. And so when you do that, every time you save the file or make changes to your properties collection, the type that gets auto-generated with the properties collection will now include the changes that you've made within that JSON schema. So in the case of the virtual field address that I created, I added some JSON schema associated with that, so that the address is now automatically part or included with the properties collection interface. So now I have now the address virtual field is available to me when I'm querying the collections. Like for properties, I will now have access to the address virtual field. And so now I don't have to hard code that or create that myself. Very flexible. So now if I ever make changes to that virtual field or add or update other fields, the type will automatically get generated for me, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's what we're going to do today. And so let's dive in and see how that works. So here we're on our sort of stubbed out property details page. And I showed this in the last video. And so we have the title of the property, the address, and the features. And then down below, we show the full JSON response for that property. We created a page for that. And so let's go through the code and see what we have going on here. And I'm just going to turn off the dev server here. And just to give you a reminder, we have all of our payload configuration options, collections, fields, that kind of stuff. This is an empty folder. I don't need that for now. And then, so we have properties. And here's what I'm saying, where I was saying I have like a sort of hard-coded custom type for my property that has this address. And down below, we have this hook that takes all of the information from the zip code. So we have a relationship to the zip code. And so I'm refactoring to kind of get rid of the need for this. We're going to use JSON schema. And so if you head on over to the payload documentation and you go into any field, let's talk about text field. And if you scroll on down here, you can see there's this attribute on your field called TypeScript schema. And this allows you to override the default auto generation of that type, or accentuate it rather. And so this uses a JSON schema format, and I didn't really see a lot of documentation. Like, they don't really give you good examples of how to do this. And so just from poking around in the code, in the source code, payload source code, I was kind of able to get it going. And so what we're going to do is we're going to remove. What we're going to do is we're going to go into here's the zip code. First of all, I don't want to call this zip code, this collection zip code anymore. So we're going to rename this to locations rather than zip codes. And so let's just get that out of the way here. Get those updates, those imports updated. So we have zip codes here, and we can rename this now to locations and locations. All right, and let's change the code now that it's not zip code sort of based. Let's just call this zip code or zip for now. And the rest should be fine. We do need to update our seeder now to reflect that. Let's just make sure this is all good. So now we have locations in our config file all set up properly on the collections config here. But let's update real quick our seeder. The zip code seeder that we talked about in the last video, let's call that locations now. And we'll just call this locations. And the import of the CSV is fine. We'll just leave that alone. Let's rename this variable constant to that. We know that this is now zip. We don't want it to be code, and we know that it's a string. We don't need to number that. And let's see, payload create locations, location. We're getting a TypeScript error warning on here because we have not rebuilt our types. We didn't. Payload hasn't regenerated our new collection, and so we can do that manually by going generate types. Oops, can't. Oh, let's see what's going on here. Oh, in our property, we need to refer to the new relationship in our properties collection. So I'm going to say location and then locations. And again, we're going to get that type error, but at least when we generate the types, we shouldn't get any more errors. Oh, what is this? Oh, code. Where is that coming from? Where is that coming from? Code. Let's go to locations. Oh, here we go. We don't want code as the title. And for now, we're just going to use zip. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to kind of roll all of these values up into a single title, which will be useful in the list view of all the locations, but also in the drop down when you're creating a property, you'll be able to see the entire location, including the city and state and zip code. So now, no more errors. Yes, good, good, good. So now if we go back to our seeder, the location seeder, now we're not getting that type error anymore because now Payload is aware of our new locations collection. So let's go in here. I'm going to I use this for videos only. For these separate videos, I like to have a different database for each time I do these, and so it helps me just restart from scratch if I just give it another. Actually, we'll just call this 31A, and go over here. We got to do the same thing here. This is kind of annoying and has nothing to do with this lesson, but it's just me doing some admin work while I'm to keep each of these videos completely separate as a separate database. So now we're just going to go pnpm, and then I have that script in my payload or in my package JSON to do seeding. This should work. All right, great. So just like before, we had 195 zip codes. In this case, it's now locations. And now let's open up the admin panel and create our first user. There we go. Let's create our first user. All right. There we go. Let's create a property. Or let me show you, now that we have locations in here, here's all the details. So we seeded those. Now let's create a property, and we'll just call it new home in Knoxville, TN. And then we'll do 444 East Main location. So now we have the locations. Now, again, we're going to change the title here so that it's going to show you the full location, city, state, and zip code, and maybe county. Add a price, for sale, and then in the previous video we talked about the features here. So if you want to know how to add these features, go ahead and check that out. Oh, great. What went wrong? Let's clean up some of this. Oh, let's remove this for now. This is going to be outdated. I think that's why we're getting an error now. All right. Let's try that one more time. New. Let's refresh this. New home in Knoxville, TN. Hopefully this works. Very good. All right. Let's head on over to the preview page. Right. We're missing something here. Oh, let's go back to the page, and we're going to get some errors here. So yeah, let's just remove this for now. There we go. So now we have this location, we have the street. Now we're kind of in a position now to where we can start manipulating this output again, and then create our custom TypeScript interface. All right. Now let's go into the properties collection, and we're going to create what Payload refers to as a virtual field. There's a few ways you can do that, but a lot of their examples, you use hooks in order to reshape the output of the data, which we did talk about in a previous video, using the after read hook. So what we want is we want to go back to being able to have an address field, but inside the address, we're going to have city, all of this stuff. So including the street. So I want to be able to say property, address, street, property, address, city, property, address, state, and zip. All in one location or one field. So we're just going to do that right here. And we're going to call this address. And this will be of type text, and we're going to say admin. We want this hidden from the admin UI. We don't want this to show up. All right. And so this is this is where our JSON, our custom TypeScript interface is going to come in handy. So let's now we still need that hook. We still need a collection hook in order to grab the data and reshape it into a different format. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a function up here. Now we can get rid of this interface, by the way. We don't need that. And now I'm going to create a function called format address. And no, that's not what we want. Let's get rid of that for now. And this is going to be after read hook. Oh, stop it. And this is going to be an async function. And the after read hook is where we add our collection hooks. So we can now take this function down here, and we have a placeholder here ready for us to add that there. And so now we have our doc. Doc is a part of something that gets added as an argument in your after read hook. And so now we have access to the data here. Like so. And you can see here. So now we can see the doc here we want to return. Well, if you go into the admin panel, you'll see that it for that property, because I'm not returning anything, go into the properties here and you go here. Let's see what happens if we return nothing. Yeah, you see I'm returning empty. And so now it doesn't have access to the values of this document. So you got to be careful about that. So always return the complete document. You can add to the document, but make sure you don't remove anything from the document. And so we're back to normal. So what I want to do is I want to create, let's make sure we have the location information here. We have the location ID, but do we have it on the front end is the question. All right. Yeah, so you can see the difference here. On the front end, when you query this data, because the data on the front end local API has the depth attribute, the configuration, the depth will allow you to get all of the data from your related field, whereas in the list view, if we go back to the admin panel, you'll notice if I refresh this, you'll notice that we actually don't. And to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how to change the depth of that while you're in the admin panel, but at least we know that it'll work on the front end. But we will be able to make some changes to the admin panel to show you the full location information, but I'll get to that shortly after we update the front end. And so on here, we're going to create, we're going to return back to this, but instead of doc, we're going to say doc like that. We're going to spread that out to make sure we still have everything that we need. And so now if you go to API, you will see that we have everything here. So now what I can do is I can say address, and just to show you what I mean. Why didn't that work? Oh, maybe I'm going to do that on at the bottom here. There we go. You can see now we have address in there. So now what we want to do, and make sure if you're going to add any new virtual fields, you add them below the doc, so you don't because you need to overwrite the one that's coming back from the doc. So what we want here is we want street, of course, and yes, that's what we want. And so now if you come back here, and now we have our address right there. And again, we don't want to remove these in favor of these. We're just going to use this on the front end. All right, so let's go back to the front end. And you can see now we have an address. Now here's the cool thing about creating custom TypeScript interfaces. If you go back over to page, you will see that, let's get rid of this. We're no longer going to need that. Get rid of this. and see what we come back with. Actually, this needs to be as property instead of our old custom type. So now if we look at that, now it's property. And now if we try to print that out, we have property.address. We do have that. And then let's see, street. So we get some TypeScript errors here, possibly null. So we can say, first of all, let's make address required. I think if we at least make this required, it'll update the type a bit. Yeah. Okay, and then if you go back over to page, you can see, yeah, so now we're not getting a TypeScript error on this anymore because it's required. There is no chance that it will be null. You head on over back to the property type here, you can see address is string. So this is actually incorrect. We don't want it to be a string, but by default, it's going to be a string because it's a text field. But we actually want it to be an object. And so we can do that now with our JSON, the TypeScript schema customization. And so you can see that's why we're getting this TypeScript error. Doesn't exist on string. So let's try that. Let's go into now updating our TypeScript schema. Back over into our properties here. We're gonna come down here and we're gonna say TypeScript schema. Oops. TypeScript schema, and this is an array of functions, as far as I'm aware. You can see here in the docs they don't really go through it, but if you click on here, this is how I figured out where to get all the details on here. So if you click into it, it'll open up the types that we have, and we can see it's an array, and then an array of functions that take args, and then inside the args is a property called JSON schema with the type of JSON schema 4. And so if you click on this, where does that come from? That comes from let's see, where'd it go? Right here, inside of a package called JSON schema that we don't need to import because Payload already imports it. But you can see here, it comes from this JSON schema, and this is a package that Payload installs, but we don't need to install it. We're just going to grab the type out of it. And you can do that. First of all, let's get our function set up. So, and we're going to do const, and then we're going to say address. And now we're going to type it as that. And then we're going to say equals. So far, so good. And then we can just import that as, and we have to kind of do it manually. My editor doesn't seem to understand where to get it from. And so we could just put it up there like that. And you notice I didn't even have to install this. So you can just pull it down the type for it actually. And there. Now what we do is we just return address, and that should take away our, so now if we head on over to, so it's already, Payload is already recompiling the types here. So if we go head on over there, so now it's unknown instead of a string because we're returning an empty object. So now let's start adding some JSON schema. And again, you can figure out what JSON schema the requirements are for it by just clicking on here, and then you can kind of see what you want, what you can get out of here. And what we want is where is it? We know it's an object, so we can say type object, and then we want properties on this object, like so. And then on the object, let's just go through all the ones. We know this is a string. Actually, it goes like this: type string, like so. And I think that's all we need. Let's grab the full state also. Yeah, I'm going to grab the state from here too. All right, now if we go back over to our types, look at that. Now we have full type safety on our custom address virtual field. Instead of me having to, if you recall, I created a custom type that extended this interface, and then I added this stuff by hand. And so now we don't need to do that, which is really nice. So look, but these are all set as optional, and we can actually fix this. We don't want them to be optional. These are absolutely required fields as part of your address. And so you can go in here and you can say required. Oh, look, thank you. Required. All of these are now required. So now that's going to update our payload types again. And if you head on over here, they're no longer optional. Isn't that nice? That's pretty cool. So now let's go over back to our page, and now look at this. We're not getting any TypeScript errors on here at all. So let's go back to the page and see what it looks like. So now we're just showing the street, and so now you can do all of these in any way you want now. City, like so, and zip. Where's the zip? There it is, and that's it. Okay. Okay, that's all we have time for today. I just wanted to go over real quick TypeScript schema, the TypeScript schema property on fields, which allows you to add your own types or custom types to your fields using JSON schema, and Payload auto-generating that for you every time you make changes. And so that's all I wanted to go over. Next video, there's some additional cleanup that I want to do in the admin panel, particularly around the new locations collection, where right now it is currently showing zip code only, like as the title. We're saying use as title the zip code, which shows the zip code in the list view of the admin panel, but also in the select drop down when you're selecting a location for your property. And so what I want to do in the next video is create a formatted version of that location. So in your drop down, whether you're looking at it in the drop down or you're looking at it in the list table view of the admin panel, I want it to show the city, the state, and the zip code all in one line, kind of nicely formatted. And so that when you go and look for that location when you're creating a property, it'll all be there visibly, and you'll be able to search on it as well. And so much easier than just selecting by zip code. And then once we have that formatted string of the city, state, and zip, that's also going to be available on the front end. We're going to create another that formatted or virtual field on a property that shows the entire address in one line, and we'll call that like full address or formatted address or whatever, and that'll be available to you as a property on a property on the properties collection, and also added to our new JSON schema so that it's included in the type. So that's what we're going to do in the next one. In the meantime, again, thanks for stopping by today. Hope that was good for you and you learned a lot. I thought it was pretty cool to be able to do that with JSON schema. And so, yeah, that's it for today. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.